This is the ocean, mighty, unyielding, a part of the world since its beginning. And yet, for all the millions of years, never the same from one restless moment to the next. Today, men of science range the wide oceans. Their destination is not other continents, but the underworld and its secrets. Boats like this one from the Scripps Institution of Oceanography, with its young scientists who prepare for a day of exploration. They have the most modern equipment available: faceplates, bayonets for defense against unknown enemies, webbed flippers, and tanks with 2,000 pounds of compressed air, which enable the swimmers to move freely underwater. Pressure regulators will keep the airflow constant, but must be watched carefully. A sudden rush of air can balloon the man's insides until they burst. Airlines and mouthpiece must be cleared, for this is life. Belt weights must be added to reduce buoyancy. One man loads an arbalete, his underwater spear gun, with a .38 caliber bullet for a warhead. This missile, deadly to man, will barely pierce the incredibly tough skin of a shark. The smallest mistake can make deadly dangerous the simple business of collecting a specimen for the research laboratory. A second check on pressure regulators, on the depth gauges, on the underwater wristwatches, Rolex oysters they're called, for ability to stand tremendous undersea pressures. Time is vital, since each tank is equivalent to just 30 water. But 10 minutes of this must be saved for the trip back to the surface as the diver gradually depressurizes. And it's men overboard. A second group, equipped for even deeper work, leaves the boat. These men are oceanographers and geologists, searching for secrets of the ocean floor. In a twilight world, they move through scenes of strange beauty, inhabited by countless forms of marine life, ranging from tiny creatures no bigger than a grain of sand to monsters of several thousand pounds. No diver knows beforehand what he is going to find in the ocean deeps. This group of intrepid adventurers is working in the waters off the coast of Southern California. Once more, the men gather together, and the watches are synchronized to be certain of the 10-minute time margin. If these men were to swim suddenly to the surface now, the quick change in pressure would expand the nitrogen in their blood, causing crippling or killing bends. Armed with deadly weapons, the first trio moves to the hunt, and it is the cameraman's job to follow and record what happens. Stingray moving along the ocean floor. Sand sharks, small but dangerous. From now on, we must proceed with caution, knowing that a greater menace is near. And here he is, a full-grown shark, the gangster of the sea. For the time being, let's avoid him if we can. At last, big game has fallen to the hunter. Pound sea bass. This is man against fish on almost equal terms, and the fish is in its own element. Were it not for that bayonet in the gills, this incident might have a different ending. But here are friendlier creatures, the sea lions. It's a pleasure to watch them as they do their slow and graceful dance. This must be the granddaddy of all lobsters, but it's of no particular interest to the scientist, only to the cook. And here is a specimen of no particular interest to anybody. It can, however, have a certain nuisance value, as it has to the golden Garibaldi, small in size but possessing a mighty temper, is furious about that sea star crawling on his nest of eggs. Well, there's only one thing to do with this intruder. Give him the old Bowery rush. On this trip, a new species of fish was collected, one that had never before been seen in Pacific waters. Apparently a close relative of the Atlantic razorfish. After he was speared, he was found to be carrying a small stone in his mouth, which turned out to be the door of his house. For this fish builds a nest of stones on the sea's bottom and leaves one stone loose to close it as a door behind him. Deep into the eel grass, which flows over the ocean's floor like a woman's hair, dives one of the swimmers and emerges to find that he has company. A sea lion, graceful and friendly, invites him to a game of tag. Winnie here is still having problems, but his bulldog tenacity is sure to win in the end. One of the divers is photographing the effects of wave action on the bottom, when suddenly he sees an eared grebe, a fussy character feeding on small bottom life, and in a big hurry too. Far below the surface, the second group of scientists works through a dimly lit world of ghostly gray and blue. About 25 miles off San Diego Harbor, they come to the edge of a submarine canyon only recently discovered. Gases from the Earth's inside send a constant stream of bubbles upward. Wearing suits of rubber and wool against the cold, these men, who are geologists, cautiously explore the edges of the vast gulf that yawns beneath them. Imperfections of photography may be excused, as these pictures, taken for the first time at a depth of nearly 100 feet and with only natural light, are unique. Many mysteries of the sea remain unsolved. Neither the extent nor the depth of this canyon has yet been determined. What are the other hunters doing? Here's one with a spear gun in his hand, moving slowly and cautiously, hoping for excitement. Far down here in the deeps, life is in constant danger. Savage creatures, large and small, may appear at any moment. And here the danger comes. The shark, the tiger of this undersea jungle. The shark approaches. The diver can only shoot and hope for the best. Got him. But who has whom? The shark whips about violently, trying to fight its way loose. The diver struggles desperately with the line, but the shark is too much for him. He has lost his mouthpiece. In the wild struggle, the line is wrapped around the diver's fin and ankle, and he is dragged through the underwater growth. The line breaks. The rescuing diver arrives in time and transfers his mouthpiece to his companion, sharing the life-giving air. The danger is not over yet. The wounded, angry shark is still in the neighborhood, and the divers must surface slowly to avoid bends. At last, they're safe. Well, look who's here. It's Winnie again, and that pest of a starfish. This time we'll make a real job of it once and for all. Scattered along the coastal waters are the last survivors of a mammal group that once ranged all the sea. There are only some 2,000 left in the world. They're tremendous. A full-grown male weighs 3,000 pounds. But they're slow and almost defenseless against their two natural enemies. The slashing killer whales, wanton murderers of the ocean, and men who shot them for food. Now sea elephants are protected from hunters and the herd grows slowly. Here in the undersea surge around Guadalupe Island off the coast of Lower California, mothers gamble ponderously with their young. Eventually, a young male sees the camera and slides in to investigate the new playmate. For these are friendly, fun-loving animals, and only dangerous from being too friendly. One might well say of this fellow that he doesn't know his own strength. And if our camera and our cameraman had not been tightly wedged among protecting rocks, this might have been the end of our story. The big beast finally backs off, baffled by this strange new animal which refuses to return a friendly gesture. This curious creature, created without a tail, looks no bigger than a flounder. But appearances are deceptive, for this is the great ocean sunfish, which comes in sizes up to 1,000 pounds, and which is the only creature in the sea that can eat the giant jellyfish with impunity. The jellyfish is one of the most elemental creatures in the world. It drops its eggs on the ocean floor, and the eggs form coral polyps, which in turn join together in whole coral colonies. Then, when their time for reproduction comes, their eggs float free and become jellyfish, thus completing the cycle known as parthenogenesis. mushroom-shaped like an atomic cloud, this monster is 35 feet long. Almost any part of it can deliver a sting, but only certain areas are deadly. It moves rhythmically with a bellows-like motion, a thing of beauty, but not exactly a joy forever. In the clear waters around the island of Santa Catalina, these young scientists swim through the age-old kelp forests with their fern-like foliage and their open glades full of coral formations of remarkable beauty. In the world of the sea, it's often difficult to distinguish between animal and vegetable life. Kelp and seaweeds are vegetable, but most of the forms that you see here are anthozoas, which is Greek for flower animals. They're actually colonies of tiny creatures, some of whom, like the coral, form rigid skeletons which remain long after the colony itself has died. Others, like the sea anemone, have no skeletons at all, are soft as their namesakes above, and sway about ceaselessly under the tides. Not everything in the sea is beautiful. This ugly customer is known as a pigfish, for obvious reasons, while this handsome fellow is considerably more elegant, and knows it. The first diver was equipped by nature alone with a pair of healthy lungs and strong legs. These men have added little to that equipment. A face mask for clear vision, a pair of webbed fins for speed and distance, and a look box to see what they can see. And here's the game, a fat grouper, one of the tastiest fish in the ocean. And after all, scientists have to eat. And so, the chase begins. Here is a group who have lost their leader and who think the camera may be another fish. And here is a spotted skate as it makes its way along the rocky ocean bottom. Our friend here is Diogenes, a hermit crab. Hiding his tender tail in a borrowed shell, he hoists up his house and decides to move to a less crowded neighborhood. He wants to be alone. In the meantime, Filbert the flounder is too lazy to move, but doesn't want to miss anything. Most dwellers in the sea can move about quite freely, but these sea worms have taken long leases on their apartments. Their home is a large brain coral, and visitors are not welcome. A purple rock oyster catches the attention of one of the divers. They're sometimes called scallops, and are firmly attached to convenient rocks or coral formations. This one looks difficult to budge, but the sharp abalone knife of the hunter quickly detaches the upper half. What's that? Something for the dinner pot? I guess it's about time to begin thinking about the evening meal. Drawn up in a row like a regiment of dragoons, these lobsters wave their feelers in search of passing food. With their tails protected by the ledge of rock, it's wiser to leave them alone and look for stragglers. A porcupine fish tries to hide itself behind some coral, but the diver goes after it. Stop it, fella, stop it, I'm ticklish. A giant stingray glides to the bottom and attempts to bury itself in the sand. All rays burrow in the sand for camouflage, and those two dark spots which look like eyes are actually spiracles for breathing. This one is trying to hide from the hunter, but without success. The ray is not badly wounded. Holding it by the tail and one nostril, the diver throws it back into the water. Unlike the evil monster of popular legend, the octopus is really a shy creature. It's far more scared of a man than a man should be of it. And yet, coming face to face with one of these creatures, fully grown and in its own element, makes one just a little bit nervous. Who knows how many of those 8 arms are going to reach out for us? This one scoots through a tunnel in the rocks and leaves the man groping from the other side. Has he caught it? Let's wait and see. He seems to have found something. Well, what is it? Well, bless my soul, it's little Audrey. Peril is close at hand. A hammerhead shark on the prowl. Big and very fast, these are among the most dangerous creatures in the sea. In the dim depths, a whole school of hammerheads swims on lazy patrol. The shark in all its forms is literally a prehistoric monster on which evolution ceased to work eons of time ago. One of the largest types of fish in the sea is the basking shark. They move very, very slowly, keeping their large mouths open as a trap for the plankton they feed upon. Into these waters off Mexico, murky with microscopic sea life, swim other monsters of the ocean in search of food. Here's a giant manta ray. His kind grows to weigh 3,000 pounds. A plankton eater, he's called devilfish by the fisherman, whose valuable nets he tears in his blind rush. Great schools of manta ray come every year to these Mexican waters to feed and spawn a new crop of youngsters who will measure 4 feet across at birth. Here, hundreds wing by in ghostly flight, like bats in a dim cave, or witches riding on the Brocken. Up above, the sun is still bright, and we follow the manta ray who are plagued with irritating worms as they leap high into the air and come down flat with a great splash in an effort to shake off these parasites. Let's go now to clearer waters, back to the neighborhood of Santa Catalina Island. After a storm has passed above and the sun has returned to penetrate the heaving surface, then the floor of the sea reveals its greatest beauty. Like a Kansas wheat field bending before the wind, or flocks of swallows swooping and circling in the evening sky, these various forms of animal and vegetable life, some of them anthosaurs, flower animals, stage a superb ballet. Sometimes languorous, sometimes swift and dazzling, they dance to an unheard inner music, which we, more fortunate than they, can create through human art. Let's go now to another part of the world, where the water is even clearer, the Bahama Islands in the Atlantic. Here, too, man is an intruder, a being from a mysterious upper world where fish cannot go and live. Having dropped his calling cards, the man prepares to follow. But wait, here may be danger. Sharks do not usually attack a man, so we'll see what this fellow's intentions are. Oh, well, I guess that if I don't bother him, he won't bother me. So, let's go. This is a moray eel. Though not very big, it's one of the most vicious and dangerous fish in the ocean. The moray has jaws strong enough to snap a man's wrist. But this one, apparently aware of the presence of its mortal enemy, the shark, wisely decides to head for shelter. His pursuer, nearsighted as all sharks are, has a keen sense of smell and moves in a series of lazy zigzags until he's close enough to see his quarry. That is the end of the moray eel. Now we'll see if one of our human hunters can be as successful. It may take a little time, but moray eels are not uncommon in these waters. And with luck, we'll pick one up fairly soon. There's one now, and a big one. If Brother Shark will only stay out of the game, we'll have a try at this one. Oh. Now we'll get after this fellow. This is really a kill for safety. The moray eel is lightning quick, and is one of the few undersea creatures that will attack without provocation or warning. And his hide is tough enough to stop a spear unless he's hit squarely. With danger out of the way, it's time to look for more pleasant subjects. The sea turtle, for example, excellent for soup. And the parrotfish, as brightly colored as his namesake in the air, and with just as sharp a beak. These gray reef fish live among the corals with a graceful jackfish. This is a filefish. Not beautiful, but interesting. His mouth is too small for the tiniest fish hook, and his skin is like sandpaper. The tiny golden fish against the fan coral are called wrasse. This young French angelfish will lose his pretty stripes when he reaches adulthood. Luckily, no such unfortunate change happens to his beautiful cousin, the queen angelfish, one of the most colorful in the Atlantic, and she loves to be photographed. These are called butterfly fish, presumably because each one looks like one wing of a butterfly. And this is a pipefish. No doubt about the reason for that name. Do you see that? A rockfish covered by protective camouflage. And this odd-looking creature is a roosterfish. The sea also has its deserts, and some odd characters inhabit them. Like the familiar gopher of our prairies, the goby fish digs its home in the sand. Junior pops up to see what's going on, and just at the right moment, too. What in the world is this? Nothing like this ever happened before. The conch moves slowly, majestically, like a cathedral that has taken it into its head to move to a new location. Well, we can't spend all our time watching this thing go by. We have work to do. Here's a small fish caught in the tentacles of a sea anemone and struggling to get free. And the eel, sizing up the situation, decides that it's worthwhile to try to steal a meal. But he doesn't want to get stung, any more than you do. Give you some idea of how time is passing. Just look where the conch is now. The goby fish has had enough of it by this time. Wants to get back to his job. It's heartening to know that while there are enemies in the sea, against which one must be constantly on guard, it's also possible to find friends. While the never-to-be-trusted shark is roving around in the neighborhood, one of our divers is approached by a pair of groupers, who soon become as devoted to him as if they were hound dogs. One of them is a striped grouper, a species of sea bass, weighing about 60 pounds. And 60 pounds of devotion is not to be rejected lightly. This is our striped friend, Sapphire. And in this corner wearing dark pants is Uncle Remus, weighing in at about 80 pounds. Actually, he's a yellow fin grouper who can change his spots to black or brown or white according to his mood. It's amazing but true that each time the divers went back to this location, over a period of 2 years, the same two fish found them and resumed their dog-like devotion. On the other hand, it would not be possible to make friends with this fellow. A steel-skinned barracuda, ready to attack anything that moves. Fast as lightning, this fish spells danger wherever it appears. Much smaller than the barracuda, but equally fast is the needlefish. The eye has to be quick to follow him. One of the cleverest creatures in the sea is the squid. He has developed his own system of jet propulsion, which works equally well in reverse. Also, the suction created by it serves to draw in his prey. Now we're going to watch a new sport. At least I never heard of it before. It's fishing, not for the sake of the fisherman, but for the sake of his pet fish. It's no wonder that these two characters couldn't be gotten rid of. What's this? Oh, a sand shark. Just the right size for a playful little wrestling match. With no holes barred. Go away, boy. You'll bother the man. This time his eyes were bigger than his stomach. Or should we say his throat? By this time, the diver is getting a little bored with Sapphire and Uncle Remus and is longing for a diversion. He doesn't have to wait very long. For here is our old friend Scarface again. Perhaps it's just curiosity that keeps him hanging around. Wonder what it'd be like to have a shark for a pet. Well, there's no harm in trying, I hope. It's just as well to get on his good side, like buying protection from a gangster. This would be a good time to hold one's breath, save oxygen. After all, one can't be certain whether Scarface is going to go after the fish or the man. And one swipe of that murderous mouth is enough to kill. If I wasn't down 15 feet underwater, I'd wipe the sweat off my brow. Something else seems to be happening in the neighborhood. Oh, it's two stingrays fighting. What about? Probably about a female stingray lying comfortably in the sand below. Slowly, the vanquished ray floats to the bottom as the men move in for a closer look. Meanwhile, the victor swims off to his lady, escorted by his equerry, the jackfish. The beaten ray is sorely wounded, but the ocean jungle has no mercy for the weak and injured. So the predatory sharks move in, followed by other scavengers of the deep. And with a savagery characteristic of all sea life, they eat the stingray alive. The long ocean day is coming to an end, and it's time for us to say our goodbyes. Sapphire and Uncle Remus are sure going to miss us. And somehow, we're going to miss them. A little. But don't worry, we'll be back next year. And I'll bet you our two faithful friends are going to be right there waiting for us. So long, Sapphire. Take care of yourself. Under the sea, between the departure of day and the arrival of night. Some of the creatures seek the protection of coral reefs. Others hide in the heavy seaweed or burrow in the sand. For sleep they must, and do, rocked in the cradle of the deep.